At 9:14 p.m., 6 figures in matching camo marched up my switchback like a budget SWAT team, headlamps blinding, barrels raised. A woman in a pearlized ski jacket screamed with military authority, "Drop the contraband, rebels." My buddy Rico held up his cards and said in the calmest voice imaginable, "Ma'am, it's a pair of 8s. I'm Elias Mercer. I bought a cedar cabin above Pine Glass Summit because the HOA brochure promised quiet alpine stewardship. I translated that as, drink coffee, chop wood, say hello to deer. Enter Colleen Bracken, HOA president, CrossFit hobbyist, and possessor of 12 fonts of authority in one binder. She hated that my porch string lights were frontier. She hated that I stacked firewood artistically wrong. Mostly, she hated that our Friday poker nights drew 3 trucks and a Subaru to a cul-de-sac built for 2 Priuses and a sermon. The thing about Colleen was that she wore her HOA presidency like a military rank. She had a laminated badge she'd made at the office supply store, complete with her photo and the words, Executive Authority, in bold letters. The first time she knocked on my door, she held it up like FBI credentials. She informed me with practiced formality that my welcome mat was 2 inches over regulation placement, and that my bird feeder attracted non-approved wildlife. I asked if there was an approved wildlife list. She produced one from her binder. Chickadees were acceptable. Blue jays were pending review. Ravens were absolutely forbidden. The postcards started arriving like clockwork. Non-compliant recreation. Unapproved porch laughter. Smells suggestive of chili. Each one had Colleen's signature in purple ink and a citation number she'd invented. She claimed we were forming a rebellious faction, then parked at the trailhead with binoculars to count our supposed insurgents. Me, Rico, Old Man Bauer, who was 72 and wore a cardigan so loud owls complained, and my cousin Tate, who shuffled cards like a Vegas ghost. She trespassed twice to measure the decibel level of our poker chips clicking together. She even brought a professional decibel meter she'd bought online, holding it up like a Geiger counter detecting radiation. The second time she trespassed, she brought witnesses, 2 board members named Janet and Harold who followed her around taking photos with iPads. They documented everything. The arrangement of our deck chairs, the brand of beer in our cooler, the way smoke from Bauer's pipe drifted toward HOA common areas. Colleen posted a laminated edict on the community board, no assemblies after dusk, as if sunset were martial law. When I pointed out my cabin sat outside HOA jurisdiction, platted before the association even existed, she smiled like a bear trap snapping shut. Every elevation is under community spirit, she said with the conviction of someone who'd practiced the line in her bathroom mirror. I should have seen the escalation coming. Colleen had been attending something called Neighborhood Leadership Intensive at the community college. She'd come back with phrases like maintaining order through visible presence and preemptive compliance measures. She started wearing a whistle around her neck and carrying a clipboard even to the mailbox. She created something called the Peak Patrol Schedule, where board members would take turns monitoring the mountain roads for suspicious activity. The suspicious activity was usually me carrying groceries or Rico fixing his truck's alternator. On the night of what Colleen called Operation Peaceful Peak, she escalated beyond anything reasonable. She rallied her board patrol, 3 neighbors who thought walkie-talkies conferred actual rank, and marched up my driveway with what looked like real rifles. Later, we'd learned 2 were .22s, 1 was a pellet gun, and the rest were pure confidence mixed with delusion. She radioed 911 reporting with a practiced urgency, armed separatists blocking a public thoroughfare. Body cam footage would later catch her stage whisper to Harold, say, paramilitary, they move faster. The thoroughfare, by the way, was my driveway, which is a glamorous word for gravel that I personally paid to have graded twice a year. The whole scene was surreal. We were sitting around a folding table with a tablecloth that had little spades and hearts printed on it. Bauer was wearing his reading glasses on a chain. Tate had a cup of herbal tea because caffeine made him jittery after 7 p.m. Rico was explaining the plot of a documentary about penguins he'd watched. This was Colleen's Dangerous Militia, 4 middle-aged guys discussing wildlife documentaries over $2 ontests. Sheriff's deputies arrived within 20 minutes, followed by a Forest Service ranger whose mustache had more seniority than anyone present. The deputies approached with hands on their weapons until they saw us, one holding a French press, one holding Bauer's cardigan like a surrender flag. We kept our hands visible and our voices calm. The lead deputy's shoulders visibly relaxed when he realized the most dangerous thing at our table was Bauer's homemade beef jerky, which could definitely break a tooth if you weren't careful. Deputies split the groups immediately, separating Colleen's patrol from us. They catalogued our arsenal: 3 pocket knives, a multi-tool, and Bauer's inhaler, which Colleen had apparently reported as suspicious canister. The deputies took statements while the ranger examined the plat map I've kept framed like a diploma since the day I bought the place. The documentation was clear. My land predated the HOA by 15 years, full stop. The property line was marked, surveyed, and filed with the county before Colleen's subdivision was even a sketch on a developer's napkin. Then they turned their attention to Colleen. "Ma'am," the ranger said, tapping her brandished pellet rifle with his pen, "this is illegal on national forest easements. Also, your jurisdiction ends at the signage you apparently tore down." Colleen's face went through several shades of red. She stammered that the signs were incorrectly placed, and that she had emergency authority to extend HOA boundaries during crisis situations. The ranger asked what exactly constituted the crisis. She pointed at our poker table and said with complete seriousness, "Unsanctioned gambling and potential insurgency." Colleen, instead of backing down, doubled down harder. She produced an emergency covenant from her binder, claiming it gave the HOA power to quell rogue gatherings. The deputies scanned it, blinking in disbelief. The footer said, "Drafted by Colleen at 2:07 a.m., in Comic Sans font. One deputy actually laughed, a short bark he tried to cover with a cough. The ranger asked about her 911 call where she'd claimed we were militia adjacent. She insisted with a straight face that our poker chips were ammo tokens, and that our Friday night games were clearly paramilitary training exercises. The ranger pulled out his phone and asked to hear the 911 recording. We all stood there in the mountain quiet, listening to Colleen's voice claiming armed insurgents were fortifying positions and preparing for conflict. Then came the body cam replay from the first arriving deputy, Colleen coaching her patrol to act afraid, and remember to point the weapons up, not directly at them, plausible deniability. That broke the mountain calm completely. Harold and Janet started backing away from Colleen, suddenly very interested in examining their shoes. She was cited on the spot for brandishing a weapon, false reporting, criminal trespass, and defacing a boundary sign. The pellet gun got bagged as evidence. Her patrol members lost their walkie-talkies to what I can only describe as the quiet shame shelf of confiscated items. Neighbors who'd followed the police cars up started gathering, everyone recording on their phones. The ranger made Colleen repeat back the actual boundaries of the HOA 3 times, like a child memorizing a lesson. Bauer, meanwhile, had continued playing solitaire through the entire confrontation. He looked up, won the hand during the lull, and announced with perfect timing, 2 pair beats 1 HOA. Within a week, the county issued Colleen a restraining order preventing her from coming within 500 feet of my property. The HOA board held an emergency meeting where they voted to suspend her presidency pending oxygen, which is HOA speak for "don't come back, ever." The vote was unanimous. Even Harold and Janet raised their hands, though Janet mouthed "sorry" to Colleen as she did. The association immediately hired a professional property manager who said the phrase "scope of authority" like a lullaby and actually understood what property lines meant. The legal consequences hit Colleen like an avalanche. The criminal charges added up fast. The false reporting was a misdemeanor with a $5,000 fine. The brandishing charge came with another $3,000 and mandatory anger management classes, and the trespass and defacing charges added another $2,000 in fines. But the real hit came from the civil lawsuit the county filed for wasting emergency resources. They sought $15,000 to cover the cost of the response. When the judge read the total, $25,000 in fines and fees, Colleen's face went white as fresh snow. She stood there with her mouth opening and closing like a fish, unable to form words as the gavel came down.